Welcome to this segment of the series of interviews with the leaders of the trade union movement, coinciding with the 17th All India Conference of the Center of Indian Trade Unions, the CITU. In this episode, we will be talking to Comrade Pambes Kiritsis, General Secretary of the World Federation of Trade Unions. He has been a leading figure in the trade union movement in Cyprus, the leader of the biggest trade union for over 3 decades, and he has also been a legislator in the Cypriot Parliament. And today we will be discussing the role of the international trade union movement in arresting the policies of neoliberalism that have been dominant in the last 3 decades. Welcome, Mr. Pambes.
Thank you very much.
Over the last 3 decades, across the world, there has been a deterioration in the terms of employment and wages. How can the global trade union movement arrest this trend?
To be precise, it's not just a trend. It is a full-face attack to the hardcore of the trade union rights, of the living and working conditions of the workers. It is an attack to the stable and permanent work with rights, with collective agreement regulations. So this is the hardcore of the neoliberal attack. The target is to devaluate the labor and to increase the profits, actually to intensify the exploitation of the workers. So how can the trade union resist to that? Only by its weapons, the struggles and the solidarity. This is what it is clear for us that it is necessary. And this is the only dignified way, the only path to resist, to strike back.
One of the ways in which capitalists and employers have adopted is not just within countries, but across countries. They have outsourced and they have fragmented the production process so that workers have lesser ability to bargain, what you call collective bargaining. That how does the world trade union movement reorganize itself to resist this particular tendency?
And nowadays, the attack to the labor and popular rights, to the living and working conditions, it is more international than ever. Okay. This is clear. Because of the internationalism of the trade, correct, of the economy, the functioning of the economy is global. The multinationals, giants, yes, and the monopolies, yes, the imperialistic states, yes, are ruling the game globally. So the react and the resist of the trade union movement have to be global as well. Yes. This is so the condition and the reaction to this attack have to be on international basis, and not only it is important, it is completely necessary. Yes. This is the main task today for the international trade union organizations. Yes. This is how we understand our position, our role, our stand in today situation. Of course, this is the way that we understand as WFTU. Unfortunately, this is not the understanding of every international trade union, because some of the international trade unions became part of this game. Even with cooperating with capitalists and in this neoliberal attack and philosophy, even by tolerance.
Even by?
By tolerance.
Yes, yes.
Of this
Correct.
situation, they are becoming part of this dirty game against the labor rights and against the living and working conditions.
Kirit, yesterday in your inaugural address, you referred to this yellow, what you call the yellow unions. Is this a recent tendency, or has it been, has it accelerated and become more important in the last few decades?
Yes, there are yellow unions. Of course, yellow unions there were ever. And when we say yellow unions, are the unions that they actually created and manipulated by the employers and the capitalists. But also there are reformist unions which they don't play their role, and they not only don't resist and don't organize struggles against this attack, but also by their behaving, they are becoming part of this neoliberal restriction of the society.
Collaborating with these.
Yes, by collaborating or by tolerance. This is very important. If you don't do anything, if you stay there and you just make declarations, because if you read declarations of these unions, you will see very militant words, resistance, etc. But in practice, in the daily action, they don't do nothing. And sometimes they have a role to convince the workers, to convince the people not to do nothing, to accept the situation as it is. This is not the approach of WFTU. WFTU promote the class action, the class orientation, and I suppose you have seen the informations from Europe that the General Secretary of ITUC, the International Trade Union Congress, which is the continuation of the liberal, old liberal, dirty story. This General Secretary arrested for Gadar scandal, corruption. What does mean that? That every union are corrupted? No, but corruption coexists with this behavior I said before. So it is another front for the class-oriented trade union movement to fight against corruption inside the trade unions, to protect autonomy of trade union, to protect the class orientation of trade union, away from bureaucracy and any kind of manipulation on behalf of employers and capitalists. This is a very important front.
The struggle for better terms of employment, wages and living conditions is primarily within national frontiers. That is, workers are engaging with their employers and their governments for better terms of employment, better wages, better living conditions, and all of those things. In what way can international solidarity help and aid these struggles?
As I said, the multinationals and the imperialistic states are ruling today a global attack. And the action and the reaction of the class-oriented trade union movement should to be coordinated all over the world. And if I say coordinated, I don't mean that we are going to become we are going to underestimate the national action.
Yes.
Because the national action is a part of the international action. We are acting in our countries, everyone,
Yes.
and we are fighting there, but at the same time we coordinate our action as the multinationals and the capitalists do, because maybe they have a very strong confrontations to when they are fighting each other who is going to get the, but to the issue of the attack to the labor rights, they are united. They are united. So we have to coordinate this action. We have to transfer our informations. We have to organize solidarity among us, and we have to create an international agenda for the trade union movement. So by this way we can face this attack, we can try and we can fight to change the balance of power, to change the situation, because we are not from this category of people who just analyze the situation. The issue is not just to analyze the situation, it's how to change the situation. This is what Marx said, as you know.
Yes.
The philosophy is not important to analyze the word, is to say how to change the word. So we believe to the international action, to the international coordination, to the international solidarity, and this is how we understand our role as international trade union organizations. And on this field we have a lot to do. We have a long action since 1945. WFTU is one of the unions that have its stamp in every convention, for example, of ILO, International Labour Office, fight for all the important and fundamental trade union rights all this year. And today we are continuing on this path, of course in different, very difficult conditions, but by the same optimistic approach that by our action, by our struggle, by our effort, we can change the situation and change the balance of power. The slogan that nothing can go on without workers is still true and is still there.
Relevant.
The working class has the power to change the situation, but it has to be organized militant, class-oriented, and demand for this change.
Yeah.
And this is what are we doing.
What has been the role of the ILO in arresting the slide of the working conditions of the workers across the world?
The role of the ILO,
Yes.
International
Yes, labor organization.
Okay, it's a crucial question. As you know, the international foundations at this moment, in generally speaking, they are not having the role that they should have, because they are under the control or the influence of the powerful imperialistic centers, especially United States and its alliance. This is true. And ILO is not accepted from this.
Yes.
So it's not the ILO that we would like to have, and sometimes it's not the ILO that we know
Yes.
in the past. But on the other hand, we don't surrender.
Yeah.
We don't put our hands up. We are intervening there. We are trying to clearize in the eyes of the workers what is really happening. Actually, ILO doesn't functioning in a democratic way today. The WFTU, which is the most historical international trade union, doesn't have the recognition and the role that it is right to have.
Yeah.
Because the way of functioning is not a representative way. In the governing bodies of ILO, there is only one international trade union, the ITUC, which I explained before.
Yes.
Sometimes
Yes.
what is its role.
Yes.
So we are fighting there. We are intervening to promote the interests of the trade, the class orientation, and the real interests of the working class. And at the same time, we are fighting for a more democratic and representative ILO, which is going to functioning by including all the trends, all the opinions, all the unions, with the real and democratic representation. For example, WFTU is representing today more than 100 million workers. And ITUC, they say that they have 200 million representing workers. But they have all the positions. They are almost the only partner there for the officials of the ILO, and they ignore WFTU.
Yeah.
This is not just, this is not right, this is not democratic. And ILO cannot talk to all the others about democracy and human rights and working rights if itself, inside of functioning of ILO, these principles are not working, are not implementing.
So, how will the process of reforming the ILO from within, where will it have to come from? Will it have to come from national governments or the pressure of the working class movement itself?
We started very structured work to promote this demand everywhere in the countries and in the ILO as well. Last years, more than last 10 years, WFTU is having very successful activities inside the International Labour Congress in Geneva.
Okay.
And one of the main issues is that the reforming of the functioning of ILO. Also, already we had sent a letter to the new general director of ILO, and we are asking for a meeting as Secretariat of WFTU to put again this demand to change the way of functioning and to become more democratic and representative. We have already had a meeting with the transition team of the new Director General, and we have given to him written positions about that. We are going to continue and intensify this pressure there and also in every country. But the leader of ILO have to convince to start this process and this discussion.
Correct.
We don't want to be the only one. We just want democracy and just representation.
Correct.
And of course, there are other unions, trade unions, for example, the Chinese. Their membership in their trade union is huge. It's covered all over the Europe as a number of representatives. But they refuse to them also a role, and etc. There are a lot of cases that I can remark here. So this is one of our tasks, to reform the ILO function to become closer to the labor demands and the labor issues, because this is, for us, this is the role that ILO should have, not to help the employers and the states, to help the workers. If it's not its role, so why it exists?
What are the initiatives that the WFTU is planning to arrest the decline in the trade union membership across the world? This has been happening over the last several decades. It's not just now, but how does the WFTU and its affiliated unions addressing this?
Yes. The Congress of Rome, it was a very historic point for us, because it was a Congress after the 3 years of COVID. And of course, there we evaluated our action, our position now in all over the world, and we put it there the guidelines of our action. The Rome Declaration is the, let's say, the guidelines, the political framework inside we implement our daily struggles and actions. So we have the main agenda after the Congress, and in the next March, 3 and 4 March, we are going to have our Presidential Council, in which we are going to approve the action plan for 2023. This action plan, the draft, it is very rich with campaigns, with international, regional, and local actions to implement what we have said before. This coordination, the most important, coordination to the struggles, promote solidarity, and implement solidarity to the struggles, transfer informations, intervene in global foundations, international foundations like ILO, United Nations, FAO, UNESCO. So in this action plan, we are going to have at least 2 solidarity international campaigns for Palestine people, for the Barco of Cuba, Venezuela, against the economic wars and sanctions. We are going to have 2 international action days. 1st of September, which is the action day for peace, is the day that the Second World War started, 1st of September, and we are using it. It's a decision of the last Congress as an action day for peace. And also the 3rd of October is the foundation day of WFTU, and we are using this day annually as International Action Day to promote the interests of the working class, to demand the better life and work conditions. There are a lot of regional actions, global actions, seminars, educational events, and also coordination of the TOIs, unions, because WFTU has not only international and regional action, we have also sectoral action through our trade union institutions, the trade union international unions, which are sectoral. We have 11 affiliated sectoral trade unions. So by the action of these unions, we are coming closer to the daily problems of the workers, and we try to coordinate also the action on the basis of the working class struggles about their problems in their jobs, in their works. So we talk about a very large and rich action plan with hundreds of activities, actions, in which are taking part million of people. Just to have a look here in India, we have 5 affiliated organizations members, 2 main and some smaller, but they represent more than 25 million workers.
Yes.
And they are militant and active. And the same you can find in other areas, in other countries, in Asia, in Latin America, in Europe, in Arab area. So there is real action, and action not just with declarations and articles, action in the field. Daily struggles, fights. For example, now, as a result of the crisis, as a result of the because the capitalists try to put on the shoulders of the working class the results of the crisis, the results of the COVID, the results of the war, the results of the economical crisis. They try to put it on the shoulders of the workers. There is a reaction, big reaction. If you search in this reaction, the affiliated members of WFTU are always in the front line, everywhere. And sometimes they are being accused by the others, who they try to not to help and support this action, but to find a way to stop it. This is something which shows that we are in the correct path and in the correct way.
Yes.
We know that the situation is difficult. We know that the balance of power today is not so positive. It's negative, to be honest. But there is mobility, there is the situation is changing, and it can change by our action and by our daily work. This is what are we doing.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And all the very best.
Thank you very much. You have the time and the kindness to have this conversation.
Thank you so much.